of the show, you guys. And something around this time of year is trades. And you guys know, the trading deadline season is probably the peak of the NBA in terms of news, right? You see so many of your favorite players in trade rumors, stuff like that. So we do have some news, and this does come from James Edwards III of The Athletic. He had a piece saying that the Pistons view Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren as their blue chip pieces moving forward. Per league sources, the feeling is that the Detroit has no interest in trading any of the four players in the immediate future. So that does come from James. And I think when you look at these four players, right, the four players that I'm looking at, like you just drafted Asar Thompson, 5th overall. I think he's a piece that you can build around. We saw today that they were using Asar in pick and rolls, and I think that's something that you can keep doing because he's that good of an athlete and he's athletic enough to get to the rim, catch lobs. Get it? I love Asar. Jaden Ivey, we've talked for the last 16 minutes on this podcast. Hell of a player. I think he's a building piece going forward. Jalen Duren, I think he's going to be your franchise center personally. I think you can build a team around Jalen Duren. Now, obviously, I would like to see him be a little bit more locked in on the defensive end, protect the paint a little bit more, protect the rim. But he's only 20 years old. He's only going to get better. And I think if you do go out and sign a veteran center to help him understand setting screens a little bit better, protecting the rim, not trying to do too much, I think Jalen Duren is a center that you could have for the next 10 years for the Detroit Pistons. And then obviously Cade Cunningham, your 1st overall pick. These are the core four. So the Pistons don't want to trade them. And especially with trading deadline season right now, you see teams that are interested in all four of these guys. The Pistons are a team that obviously they're the worst team in the Eastern Conference and the worst team in basketball. And there's a lot of questions if Detroit is going to move on from any of these four. And I think it's a good idea, even though it hasn't really translated to the wins so far. It's a good idea to try to keep these guys intact to see what you have. Personally, I'm okay with them keeping these core four. Well, obviously, they don't mention Isaiah Stewart. They don't mention, James Wiseman, even Marcus Sasser to an extent, even though you just did draft him. But these are the core four that the Detroit Pistons front office, they want to keep for the long term. And I think it's a smart idea from an organizational standpoint. These are four guys that I think all impact the game in a positive way. But, on the negative side, they really haven't won too many games. But I do want to go to the comment section with you guys, see what you're saying about the front office deciding not to trade the core four. Let's see what we got from you guys. Give me a second. Which is insane. You can't play all them dudes. Eastside Johnny, I'm glad you said that because when you look at just those four, right? I think Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren are the two non-shooters. Who knows if Asar Thompson is going to develop a shot? He had a couple today where I was like, geez, man, it didn't even hit rim, hit backboard a lot. And they were quarter threes, right? And that was the one knock on him coming out of OTE was he wasn't a knockdown shooter, but he was a hell of a defender. Both of the Thompson twins. That was a scouting report on them is, hell of a defenders, really athletic, but their shots aren't, up to NBA standards. They might just be, lockdown defenders and never develop a jump shot. I don't know. I'd like to think that Asar could at least become a 30% three-point shooter throughout his career if he continues to work and develop it. We're going to have to wait and see if that does happen. Now, for Jalen Duren, I think you can get away with Jalen Duren not being a quote-unquote perimeter threat. I think if he can have a career similar to a Bam Adebayo, for example, where, Bam could still hit a jump shot. He can finish around the rim. He can initiate the offense. I think that's what you're starting to see with Duren. He's starting to run more dribble handoff offense, with the Detroit Pistons over the past couple of weeks. I think that's something that the Pistons coaching staff is exploring with him, seeing if he can actually handle it. But I think you can get away with Duran not being a perimeter threat. But when you play those two together, especially when they're playing together, it's really apparent that they can't shoot. But at the end of the day, that comes to rotations and coaching. The coach has to put these players in the best position possible for them to play better, you said. But I do agree with you. You can't pay all those dudes, especially when the contracts are coming up. But in terms of playing them, I think from a coaching standpoint, you have to do a better job of, surrounding those players with spacing. Like they're starting to use Asar in more pick and roll instances because he hasn't developed a jump shot yet. There are times where he'll hit like these crazy tough mid-range jump shots, but they're not always consistent. And like I said, he's a rookie. He's only 20 years old, but he's a player that I think I trust more to develop a jump shot than anyone else on this team right now because I know what the type of work he puts in. We'll go to some more comments. This comes from Muhammad. I really think they're all very talented, but we literally cannot play two non-shooters with two mediocre shooters. In my opinion, one needs to go, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I understand this from fans where, you look at the core four, they're calling it a second iteration of the core four, which is actually kind of funny. I agree with you, Muhammad. In terms of when you look at it, if Ivy is a league average shooter, let's say he shoots 35% from three throughout his career, I guess that's passable. Cade's he either can hit a bunch of threes one game or he can't. And it's if Cade's only a 30% three-point shooter, but he's just cash from mid-range, I think that's where it gets difficult because all four of those guys that you drafted, there's not one knockdown shooter out of all of them. And I understand that. I think one will go. And if I had to guess which one would get dealt, it's probably Jaden Ivey. And the only reason why I say that is because of who the coach is. I guarantee you, I'm not even listening to the press conference today, but I guarantee you Monty is going to say Jaden missed a shot or something, or he missed a read. He's not going to give him a pat on the back. Monty Williams just has it out for Jaden Ivey, and I don't understand why. It's the craziest thing. But like I said, if there was a trade, I would probably bet on Ivy just because of who the coach is. Not to say that I don't think Ivy's talented. I think he's one of the better players on the Pistons, and we've seen it since they had that organizational meeting. But I don't know, man. If they include him for a Levine trade, it would not surprise me whatsoever. This comes from Ronald McDonald. I believe in Troy. Love his picks. They see value in Killian as a role player who can fill in if someone goes down. Yeah, I think Killian should be a 4-string guard, basically, because you would have, let's just say, Ivy's point. You want Monte as your second string, Sasser as your third string, and Killian as a break the glass emergency type guard if you need one. But the thing is, Ronald, I think they're still going to find minutes for Killian just as a primary defender. So whether you slot him in at shooting guard, I think there's still going to be times where Killian does play a good 10 to 15 minutes a night. Adam Young, I wouldn't trade any of them. Thompson is great defensively and can cut nicely for dunks. Moves well. Duran, great feet inside, can finish. Ivy's crazy explosive. He's either laying it in or going to the line. Yeah, that's the thing, Adam. I think when you look at this core, do they make sense? Perimeter-wise, no. But I think it would be really early to try to punt one of them because a quote-unquote maybe all-star player is available, like a Zach LaVine, for example. Like I said, all these guys are incredibly young. Jaden Ivey's in his second year, still making strides. Jalen Duran in his second year, still making strides, 20 years old. Asar Thompson has had flashes this year of being a lockdown defender. And he's just a menace in the transition game. Cade Cunningham, when he's healthy, I should say, can get you 25 a night easily. He had like 20 points and 12 assists the other night. Like all these guys are good players. It's just I think when you talk to some fans, it's like, these guys can't hit a 3-pointer. No one's a reliable 3-point shooter. Like if you look at this team, I can guarantee you it's either Alec Burks or Bojan Bogdanovic. It's probably leading this team in 3-point percentage. And those are two veterans. It would be better if one of your core four that you drafted leads this team in 3-point percentage. And I think that's why a lot of fans are like, two of those guys aren't perimeter threats. But I would hold on to them just to see what's there because we really don't know what they're going to turn into. It'd be nice to, draft and develop some homegrown talent and not panic and try to trade for somebody that might not be here for longer than like 2 or 3 years. They need to utilize Durham more like they did tonight. We're a way more competitive team when he's involved on the offense. I 100% agree, Derek. I do. When Duran is more active, like you mentioned, he gives more effort, and you got to feed your big man when he's hot like that. OKC did not have an answer for him, and it's so funny. Every time we play OKC, they really have a hard time with their bigs. Now, obviously, Isaiah Stewart went out tonight with an injury. Don't really know the status on that, but Duran 8 tonight, 20, 20, and 6. It's a hell of a game, but I think they do need to involve him more. I think that's why you've been seeing kind of point Duran. He's been bringing the ball up the floor, initiating the offense a little bit. I think they want to experiment with dribble handoffs with Jalen Duran. I think that's a very smart move. Kind of like how you see Joel Embiid initiate the offense for the Sixers. Same with Nikola Jokic. Now, obviously, he's not going to be a passer like Jokic, but I think that's what a lot of teams in the NBA are doing with bigs like that. Like you see it with Domantas Sabonis, you see it with Bam Adebayo. I think Duran is a gifted enough passer to where you can run dribble handoff, sets with him offensively. I mean, we saw Andre Drummond do it, his last year here with Van Gundy, where he was, running DHOs and setting up the offense a little bit. And, it seemed to work. It looked good. My only thing is like, you have to have one big run of DHO. You can't have him and Stewart doing it at the same time. Saw that tonight. I was like, you have to have at least one because when you have two of them trying to run DHOs, it clogs up the paint for the guards. But I do agree with you, Derek. They have to feed him more, get him more involved because he's a lob threat and he's just a monster down low.